I found out my own baby shower had been canceled from a text message that wasn't even meant for me. It was a Tuesday afternoon, 7 months pregnant, feet swollen from a shift I'd worked standing most of the day, and I was scrolling through my phone on the couch when a message popped up in a group chat I'd been added to months ago and mostly forgotten about. Baby shower planning, 12 women, half of them coworkers, half of them family from my husband's side. So sad about Zara's loss. Sending love to the family during this time. Should we still send a card? I read it 3 times before my brain would accept the words in the order they appeared. My loss. I set my hand on my stomach, felt the small, stubborn kick that had been keeping me up at night for weeks, and felt something cold slide down my spine. I wasn't grieving anything. There was nothing to grieve. My daughter had kicked me at 4 in the morning that very day, hard enough to wake my husband Andre, who'd laughed and pressed his palm flat against me and said, "She's got your temper already." I scrolled up through the thread with shaking thumbs, and that's when I saw it, a message from 3 days earlier, posted by my mother-in-law, Regina. "I have some difficult news to share. Zara has lost the baby. Please keep the shower canceled and give her and Andre space during this painful time. I'll let everyone know when they're ready for visitors." 41 replies. Prayer hands emojis. Broken hearts. Women I'd worked alongside for 3 years telling me they were sorry for a loss that had never happened, in a conversation I wasn't even meant to see. I sat there on my couch, 7 months pregnant with a healthy, kicking daughter, reading condolences for a child who was very much alive inside me, and I understood, with a clarity that made my hands go numb, that my mother-in-law hadn't made a mistake. She had made a decision. And I had absolutely no idea yet how deep the reasons for that decision actually went, or what it was going to cost her once my husband found out the truth. To understand how we got here, you have to understand Regina. From the very first dinner Andre brought me to, 3 years ago, I could feel her measuring me against something I couldn't see. She was polite in the specific way people are polite when politeness is a performance rather than a feeling, compliments that landed like small cuts, questions about my job that always circled back to how demanding it must be for a woman who'd eventually want children. Andre used to wave it off. "That's just how my mother shows love," he'd say. "She's old school. She'll come around." I believed him, mostly because I wanted to, and because Andre himself was nothing like her, warm where she was calculating, direct where she was sharp in 100 small, deniable ways. The real tension started when we got engaged. Regina had a favorite, and it wasn't me. Her older son, Stanley, was married to a woman named Celeste, and Celeste could do no wrong in Regina's eyes, the wedding Regina helped plan for 18 months. The baby shower she'd thrown 2 years earlier with matching centerpieces, and a photographer, and a slideshow of ultrasound pictures set to music. When Celeste had her son, Regina posted 40 photos in 1 week. When I got pregnant, she waited 11 days to acknowledge it publicly, and even then, the caption read, "Andre's expecting. Wishing them the best." Not we. Not our family. Andre's. Like I was incidental to my own pregnancy. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself Andre and I were building our own life, our own family, and that his mother's approval, or lack of it, wasn't something I needed to survive. I didn't understand yet that Regina wasn't simply cold toward me. She was working toward something. And the baby shower, the one she'd quietly agreed to help plan 3 months earlier, offering to handle invitations because she knew everyone anyway, had never been about celebrating me at all. It had been an opportunity. And I had walked right into her hands, believing, the way I'd believed so many things about this family, that I was finally being let in. Are you enjoying the story? Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you're enjoying it so far, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Because believe me, this story is only getting started. Now let's get back into it. I called my best friend Dana before I called anyone else, because I needed to hear a voice that wasn't shaking to steady my own. "Tell me I'm reading this wrong," I said, and read her the messages. Dana went quiet for a long moment. Too long. "Zara," she said finally, carefully, "I got a call from Regina 11 days ago. She said the same thing. I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't know how to ask you about it without making things worse. The floor tilted under me. 11 days, I repeated. Dana, I've been posting pictures of my nursery for the last 2 weeks. I posted a video of her kicking on my page 4 days ago. I know, Dana said, her voice tightening. I saw that too. Honestly, I thought maybe you'd had a scare and things had turned around, and nobody wanted to say anything in case it went wrong again. That's what Regina told people. That there'd been complications, that you'd lost the baby, and that you were struggling and didn't want visitors or calls, and that she was managing everything on your behalf so you wouldn't have to. I felt my whole body go cold, then hot, then cold again. She told people I was too fragile to talk to my own friends, I said slowly, piecing it together in real time. She told them to give me space. She built a story so airtight that everyone who loved me stayed away, and the ones who didn't stay away assumed I was too broken to reach. Zara, I am so sorry. I should have just called you. It's not your fault, I said, though my voice cracked on the words. It's not your fault, Dana. I hung up and sat in the silence of my own living room, hand pressed against the small foot pushing insistently against my ribs, and felt something in me shift from heartbreak into something colder, more focused. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't old-school bluntness or a mother-in-law who showed love strangely. This was a calculated lie, built and maintained for 11 days, designed to isolate me from every person who might have shown up for me. And I still didn't know the reason why. Not yet. I called Regina before I called Andre. I know now that was a mistake, but grief and fury make strange decisions feel logical in the moment. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm, unbothered, like she had no idea what was coming. Zara, sweetheart, how are you feeling? I know what you told everyone, I said, no preamble, my voice flatter than I expected it to be. I saw the group chat. I know you told 41 people I lost my baby. The pause on the other end was so brief I almost missed it. Oh, Zara, no, there's been some kind of confusion. Don't, I said. Please don't. I have the messages. Word for word. I know you told Dana 11 days ago. I know you've been managing who does and doesn't get to talk to me for almost 2 weeks. I was protecting you, Regina said, and something in her tone shifted now, defensive, quick. You've always struggled with people overwhelming you during stressful times. I thought it was better to give everyone a simple explanation than to have them constantly checking in and adding pressure. I wasn't stressed, I said. I was pregnant. Healthy. Happy. Until I found out my own mother-in-law told our entire community I'd lost my child. I don't see why this has to become dramatic, Regina said, and I actually laughed, a short, disbelieving sound, because there it was the same tone she'd used my entire relationship with Andre, the tone that made every real grievance sound like an overreaction. You canceled my baby shower, I said. You told people I miscarried. You did this without telling me, without telling Andre, and let me find out through a text that wasn't even meant for me. What part of that isn't dramatic, Regina? I think, she said, and her voice had gone cool now, all pretense of warmth dropped, that you should calm down before you say something you'll regret. Stress isn't good for the baby. Assuming there still is one, given how upset you're getting. I sat with that sentence for a full 3 seconds before I hung up the phone, hands trembling, and realized I hadn't imagined the cruelty at all. I had barely scratched the surface of it. I need to tell you about the ultrasound appointment, because that's where the real reason finally surfaced. 3 weeks before all this happened, Andre and I had gone in for our anatomy scan, the one where you find out everything is developing the way it should. Regina had asked, almost casually, if she could come along. Andre, always hopeful his mother's coldness toward me might thaw once there was a grandchild involved, said yes before checking with me. I remember the moment the technician turned the screen toward us, the way Andre's whole face opened up with joy, the way he squeezed my hand so hard it almost hurt. And I remember Regina, standing slightly behind us, her face doing something I didn't understand at the time, something tight, something that didn't match the moment at all. Later, in the parking lot, I heard her on the phone with her sister, thinking I was still inside settling the bill. I only caught pieces. But the pieces were enough. Celeste's boy is going to be the only grandchild who carries the family name forward if this one's a girl. Stanley's line matters more. You know that's how your father always saw it. I just don't know how I'm supposed to celebrate the same way twice, not when it isn't. I didn't understand the full weight of what I'd heard until much later, when Andre's aunt, during a tense phone call weeks after everything unraveled, finally said it plainly. Regina had spent decades believing that the family's worth, its legacy, its name, ran strictly through sons who had sons. My daughter, healthy and wanted and loved by everyone except the one person who should have been overjoyed, represented something Regina had never made peace with, a line she'd quietly decided didn't count the same way. She hadn't lied about losing the baby out of confusion, or misplaced protection, or anything close to good intention. She had done it because some small, ugly part of her would rather my daughter be mourned than celebrated. I sat with that truth for a long time before I found the strength to tell Andre everything I now understood. I told Andre everything that night, sitting across from him at our kitchen table, sliding my phone toward him with the group chat open, watching his face change in real time as he scrolled. I have never, in 3 years of marriage, seen my husband go that still. 11 days, he said quietly, more to himself than to me. She's been telling people this for 11 days. There's more, I said, and told him about the phone call, about what I'd overheard in the parking lot after the ultrasound, about Celeste and Stanley and the family name, and the tight, unreadable look on his mother's face when we'd seen our daughter's heartbeat flutter across that screen. Andre didn't say anything for a long moment. He just sat there, jaw working, hands flat on the table like he needed something solid to hold on to. I need you to know something, he finally said, looking up at me, and his eyes were wet in a way I'd rarely seen. I have spent my entire life making excuses for her, telling myself it was generational, that she didn't know better, that underneath it she loved us the only way she knew how. I did that because it was easier than admitting my mother might genuinely be capable of something like this. Andre. No, he said, and his voice was steady now, steadier than I expected. Don't soften this for me. Don't do what I've been doing for 30 years. My mother told 41 people my wife lost our daughter. She let you sit in this house alone for 11 days while people who loved you stayed away because she told them to. She did this on purpose, Zara. Not out of confusion. Out of something much colder than that. He stood up, and I watched him pick up his phone, and I asked him, my voice small, what he was going to do. I'm going to go see my mother, he said. Tonight. And I need you to know, whatever happens after this conversation, I am done making room in our life for someone who would do this to you. I had never heard him sound like that before. Calm. Certain. Finished. I had no idea what was about to happen at that house, but I knew, watching him walk out the door, that something in our family had just permanently changed. Andre told me everything that happened that night, later, once he'd had time to steady himself enough to speak about it clearly. He said Regina opened the door already smiling, already reaching to hug him, and he simply stepped back and asked her to sit down. I know what you did, he said. I've seen the messages. I know about the parking lot conversation with Aunt Denise. I want to hear you explain it to my face. He said his mother tried the same deflections she'd tried with me, that she was protecting Zara, that people were overreacting, that Andre had always taken things too personally when it came to his wife. And Andre said he let her talk until she ran out of excuses, and then he asked her one simple question. Do you love your granddaughter, Mom? The one you told 41 people doesn't exist anymore. He said Regina's face did something he'd never seen it do before, crumbled, just slightly, before she caught herself and rebuilt the composure back into place. Of course I do, she said. Then why, Andre said, would you rather people believe she died than believe she's here? Regina didn't answer. Andre said the silence stretched long enough that he understood, finally and completely, that she didn't have an answer that wasn't the truth, and the truth was something she wasn't ready to say out loud, maybe not even to herself. I heard you, he said, quieter now. In that parking lot. I heard what you said about Stanley's line mattering more. About not knowing how to celebrate the same way twice. My daughter is not a disappointment for existing, Mom. She is not less than Celeste's son. And if you cannot find it in yourself to say that and mean it, you will not be part of her life. He said Regina started to cry then, not the performative kind, but something that looked, for the first time in his memory, completely unguarded. You don't understand what it was like, she started, growing up believing daughters didn't carry anything forward, watching my own mother treat my brothers like they mattered more just for being born male. I never wanted to become her, and somehow I. That's not an excuse, Andre said. That's a reason to do better. Not worse. He left before she finished crying. He told me later it was the hardest thing he'd ever done, walking out on his own mother mid-sentence. It would not be the last hard thing either of them did that month. Regina's world did not stay quiet for long after that night. Andre, still shaking with anger the next morning, sent one message to the same group chat that had carried his mother's lie for 11 days. He didn't ask my permission first, and when I found out, some part of me was terrified, but a larger part of me, the part that had spent nearly 2 weeks grieving condolences for a loss that never happened, felt something close to relief. I want to correct something. My wife did not lose our baby. She is healthy, our daughter is healthy, and the story that circulated over the last 11 days was not true. I don't fully understand yet why it was told, but I wanted every one of you to know the truth directly from us, and I'm sorry you were misled. The messages that followed were not kind to Regina. Women who had sent condolences now sent confused, then angry questions. Celeste, of all people, sent a private message to Andre that read simply, "I'm so sorry. This explains some things I never wanted to believe about how she talks about your daughter versus mine." Regina called me 3 times that week. I let all 3 go to voicemail. She showed up at our door once, and Andre answered, and I heard him tell her, calmly and without raising his voice, that she was welcome to try again when she was ready to take full responsibility, without softening it, without excuses about her upbringing or her fears about family legacy. I watched, over the following days, as something in Regina's carefully maintained composure began to visibly crack in public for what people later told me was the first time anyone could remember. She canceled her standing hair appointment. She stopped attending her regular church committee meeting, the one she'd chaired for 6 years, apparently unable to sit through the questions her closest friends now had for her. For a woman who had spent decades controlling exactly how people saw her, being seen clearly, completely, without the polish, was its own kind of unraveling. I didn't feel triumphant watching it happen. I felt tired. But underneath the tired, for the first time in 11 days, I finally felt safe again, safe enough to let myself feel excited about my daughter's arrival without the shadow of what Regina had done hanging over every kick, every ultrasound photo. Every quiet moment I should have been allowed to simply enjoy. Regina reached out one final time, 5 weeks later, 2 weeks before my due date. This time, she didn't call or show up unannounced. She wrote a letter, handwritten, and left it with Andre at his office, saying only that she understood if we never responded. I read it twice before I let myself believe it. She didn't ask us to forget what happened. She didn't offer the old excuses about protecting me or overreacting. She wrote about her own mother, about growing up the third of 4 daughters in a house where sons were celebrated with dinners and daughters were simply expected to eventually produce them. She wrote that she had promised herself as a young woman she would never make a child feel like a consolation prize, and that somewhere in the decades since, without ever noticing the moment it happened, she had become exactly the thing she swore she'd never be. She wrote that she was in therapy now, her first time ever, at 63 years old, and that she wasn't writing to ask for anything, only to say that she understood if the damage she'd caused wasn't something 2 granddaughters. Because Celeste's son had a little sister on the way too, she mentioned, almost like an afterthought that suddenly mattered more than it once had couldn't undo with time alone. Andre and I talked about that letter for a long time. We didn't rush toward forgiveness, because I don't believe forgiveness rushed is forgiveness earned. But we agreed, eventually, to let her attend the hospital the day our daughter was born, on the condition that she wait in the family lounge, not the room, until we were ready. She waited 4 hours without complaint. When I finally let her in, she stood in the doorway for a long moment before she came close, and when she finally looked down at my daughter, really looked at her, I watched something in Regina's face soften into an expression I don't think I'd ever seen there before. "She's beautiful," Regina said, voice breaking. "She's so beautiful, Zara." I'm sorry it took me this long to be able to say that and mean it completely. It wasn't everything. It wasn't enough to erase 11 days of grief I never should have carried. But it was a start, and starts, I was learning, mattered more than perfect endings. My daughter is 8 months old now, and Regina has kept every promise she made in that hospital room. It hasn't been simple. Trust, once broken that completely, doesn't rebuild on anyone's convenient timeline, and there are still days I watch her a little too closely, still moments I brace myself out of old habit for a version of cruelty I hope, but can't fully guarantee, is truly gone. But she shows up now, consistently, humbly, without the old performance. She asks before she assumes. She celebrates my daughter with the same volume, the same joy she once reserved only for Celeste's son, and I've watched her do the same, unprompted, for Celeste's new daughter, born 3 weeks after mine. André still struggles with it more than he lets on. There's a particular kind of grief in learning your mother was capable of something that cruel, and an equally particular kind of hope in watching her try, genuinely, to become someone different. He tells me sometimes he doesn't know if he's forgiven her yet, only that he's chosen to let her try, and that those aren't quite the same thing, but they're not nothing either. As for me, I think about those 11 days more than I'd like to. I think about every friend who stayed away because they believed a lie designed specifically to isolate me during the most vulnerable stretch of my life. I think about how close I came to grieving a made-up loss instead of celebrating a very real, very stubborn little girl who still kicks hardest at 4 in the morning, just like she did before any of us knew her name. But mostly, I think about the moment André walked out our front door that night, calm and certain in a way I'd never seen from him, and chose truth over comfort, chose me and our daughter over 30 years of quietly excusing his mother's cruelty. That's the moment that changed everything, more than the group chat, more than the letter, more than the 4 hours Regina waited in that hospital lounge without complaint. Because the real lesson I carry from all of it isn't about mothers-in-law, or family legacy, or who gets celebrated and who doesn't. It's that love that requires your silence was never really love at all. And the people who truly love you will choose the truth, every single time, even when the truth costs them everything they thought they couldn't survive losing. The end.